Hello again, Steve here, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about theology and in reference to philosophy. And the reason I wanted to do this is because it's come up on my radar lately. I was talking to a guy recently who was talking about how the basis of philosophy is theology. And I had a little bit of a disagreement in my heart with that because I don't think they belong on the same page really. But however, I think they attempt to. I think that theology is a practical process or a practical approach to getting to an end that philosophy might arrive at. For many people who don't necessarily want to go through the process of philosophy, I think it is a practical approach. It's a means to an end, theology a means to an end, whereas philosophy is a process, which maybe never approaches the end, but that's the goal. And I was reading, which is interesting, I was reading somebody I know allowed me to read his book. It's called Plato's Republic. I had never read it before. Going through it now, it's a bit of a challenge. I have a hard time reading deep, old texts. It's because they're so deep and it's hard to pay attention for quite a while. But in here he talks about how, I think it's Socrates talking, as a group of people talking, reported to be anyways. He says in book 3, you can find it at the beginning of book 3, "Such then, I said, are our principles of theology. Some tales are to be told, and others are not to be told to our disciples, from their youth onward, if we mean them to honor the gods and their parents, and to value friendship with others." So as you can see, to lead up to this, they were talking a lot about how they really criticize, this guy's really criticizing Homer, because Homer had written this great tale, but it's full of all sorts of inconsistencies that gods, who are supposed to be perfect, are basically quarreling and fighting with each other and so on all the time. So it's heretical to the nature of improving the quality of our life experience, you might say, to have people look up to these characters who can't even get their act together, basically. So what he's talking about is that proper theology is a process where the tales of the gods and so on are that of perfection. Like, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people look up to characters like Jesus, because they see this guy as a higher moral character and a godly character than they are. So therefore it gives them an approach to life, which is a very, very good example, right? So that's what I would say is, he talks about that in here, about how when there's children, we teach them by stories. We tell them tales. And he's talking about our disciples right from their youth onward. So he's talking about teaching children stories. But they have to be correct theological stories, is what he's talking about. They are godly stories. That's what theology means, the study of God. And if God is all perfect, he talks about this in here, God can't do evil. Because if God is only good, then God can only do good. Otherwise, God is not good if he's doing evil. Evil, as I understand it here, is sort of like the absence of good. It's sort of like darkness doesn't really exist without the concept of light. You remove darkness, what it is the absence of light. It's not the presence of darkness, right? Whereas evil is the absence of good. It's not the presence of evil, so to speak, right? So that's what I would say. Whereas philosophy is the examination, the in-depth examination of these sorts of things, the in-depth process, the rigor of the logic that leads to it. Whereas people can get to the same conclusion through stories, but they have to be theologically correct stories, where the gods are gods with a double O. They are good. They are the good, right? And they're the good example, and not a bunch of perverts or whatever, a bunch of fighting and quarreling people like so many of the Greek gods were in Homer's Iliad, I guess. I have read a bit of it, but it's once again, it's a slug for me because I'm not that literary of a person. But nevertheless, I was surprised that Socrates goes to tears a strip out of Homer, and that was kind of relieving, I thought, because I had a hard time reading any of Homer as well. Once again, Steve here. Great chatting. If you look behind me, the snow is almost to the top of the window. We get lots of snow here, that's for sure. At times the lights go out almost, so much snow comes off the roof. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.